Hello and welcome. My name is Rally Georg and I'm your host at the Soul Filler Podcast, a space for personal and spiritual growth. Enjoy the following episode.
This is so important because a lot of people forget that however I say things, it will never be the way I said it. It will be the way you... So this quite often is happening. If anything in this podcast is triggering you, question this. Ask yourself
hopefully something is triggering. And even when something is triggering you, remember to take a deep breath and let it go. Every week I will introduce you to incredible people who are managing the body, mind and soul game in different unique ways. We will talk about spiritual practices and other helpful techniques and tools that will help you to improve your spiritual, physical, mental and emotional health.
This is a good question. I do think that I can speak for myself, that I'm very much an empath and that I'm very connected with my emotions.
There's something that's happened, so it's an external trauma of some sorts that has then presented itself in a car crash or you've fallen over or you've injured yourself.
You will meet experts from different fields, life coaches, doctors, trainers, entrepreneurs.
So ultimately it's just labels that again doesn't reflect our true nature, which is way deeper than that.
To enjoy the most incredible human experience in this lifetime, we need to take care of the body, the mind, the heart, and the soul in many ways.
By spending time outside, I think it's just a really great way to burn more calories in a fun way. And of course, there's other health benefits to it as well.
And you were one of the most positive people I met.
Namaste.
Ciao! With my blue gloves on.
Don't forget to subscribe, like and share. Enjoy the following episode. So welcome to Simone Topel today. I'm so grateful to have you here on my podcast. And Simone is, as most of you maybe already know, one of the co-founders of Show Up, one of the greatest well-being communities, not only in Barcelona, now in many other cities and countries, yoga teacher, women mentor, transformational coach, and so many other things. I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you for your time, for your energy. And in the beginning, I would like to share, I try to be short, personal story about the way when I first met you. Because many of us are expats in Barcelona, or not only, or whatever, wherever you're listening or watching it, and there are a few phases, right? In the beginning, we're like excited, and everything is fascinating, new culture, new foods, new people, new everything, and at some point you just like hit or the reality, you need like paperwork or stuff, and you don't understand the language, and then you go back and everything is like tomorrow, mañana, whatever, and you're like frustrated because sure we want to control everything and so on, and at some point I think many of us feel like lost, alone, you don't know many people, and that was the point where I was when I came to Show Up, one of the morning events, and it was so amazing. I mean, the breath work and the body connection and everything, but at that part when, at the end, or not exactly the end, but at some point, like people have to hug, and I realized how disconnected we are from each other, because, I don't know, digital invasion, COVID, like 2 meter distance, please don't come. And then also because we were afraid of those connections, sometimes terrified to let people in or so close. And then we went back to my first Show Up event, and those moments, like you have to hug like strangers and people you don't know, and those 10 seconds those awkward 10 seconds when you're like looking around and you think, oh my God, can I just like disappear? Noticed, you know? And then you came. Like, like an angel. And I was like, yeah, let's hug, and it's your, what is your first time or something like this. And I know for you it's supernatural, it's not personal, it's the way you are, pure love and light. But for me, you just saved my day, my whole, I will say week and months after that, because I learned so much. For that, I don't know, 5 seconds or so, that's that hug. And I realized how important and how big such a small gest, like a smile, like a hug for someone. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. I had no idea that I, left such an impact on you that day. But it's so true. I think whenever people are new to doing that practice, they feel really uncomfortable. And once you sort of get used to it, you realize it's such a simple thing, and it's something that's so natural to all of us, and yet we just like to hide away, and we don't like to just walk up to strangers and give them a hug. So it really kind of gets you out of your shell.
It's really, really great. Yeah, and since then I was following you, all of your work, and it's so fascinating, and you changed so many lives, and also women. Tell me more about this, because I believe, or I think that in our society and the life we are in, to survive, we have to be at some point like in those masculine energy to just achieve some things. That's at some point we forget our softness and that feminine power. And how is your you meet so many people all the time, and women, and particularly. What do you think? What is that influence or impact of the world we are living in, society, of our femininity and the feminine energy and power?
Well, I think that, just to set context, right, there are traditional masculine traits and feminine traits, the masculine being more ambitious, confident, logical, all of that good stuff, and the feminine being the more emotional, intuitive, creative, slower, nurturing. And neither is better than the other, but we live in a society that tends to reward people who demonstrate the masculine traits more than feminine. And so as women, many of us tend to sort of tone down the feminine, right? Because if we're too emotional, then we'll be at a disadvantage, particularly, well, in most contexts, right? In the workplace, it doesn't really serve us. If we're in personal relationships, we're too emotional or we're too much, right? And so we've been taught to tone it down and sometimes kind of put it into our shadow. And so on the other hand, we try to tone up the other traits, right? Which, and again, neither is better than the other. We need both of them. We need a healthy balance of them. And so I'm running a retreat next week with Show, which is our women's retreat, and this is kind of the foundation for this retreat, which is helping women to connect back with their feminine side, because the disadvantage for us toning that all down is we're disconnected with our bodies. We aren't able to, tune into what we need. And we're often sort of self-sacrificing for other people. Overgiving to others and undergiving to ourselves. And so we need to find balance again, right? Because there is strength and power in the feminine. We just need to be able to reconnect with that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And about the giving, that's something very feminine, of course. Like nurture, even when we talk about children and so on. But when we overgive, I guess, or I believe that at some point we became like resentful, right? That's what's happened, because as you already said, we don't give much to ourselves and don't really meet our needs and wishes and so on. And at some point, what happens? It's an inner child, or it's where?
So we continue to kind of push, right? And this is something that I definitely can relate to sort of in my past was feeling like I needed to continue to do more and push and achieve, and thinking that that was the way to receive love or to get validation, right? If I just kept doing more and really leaning into my masculine, completely ignoring my body, my needs, my intuition, but just doing. And so that imbalance did not serve me. And so I think that it's, especially when it's kind of a new thing to you, can be difficult to slow down, to really, and listen into your body. It's uncomfortable. It's maybe, you know, it's an innate gift that you have, but you may not have been using it for a while, so that process can take a little bit of time.
Yeah, and it's exhausting, right? Because it's like I mean, I believe that it's I'm also very curious what you think about, but because of the biology and the body we're in, do you believe that like 50-50 balance is possible, or there is some kind of, for women, the feminine part because of the biological body, the physiology? Do you believe there can be really balance 50% feminine and 50% masculine?
Well, I think that in a perfect 50-50 balance is probably unrealistic, right? And it's impossible to really to measure, right? And again, I'm not a doctor or know that much about this.
From my experience, with so many other women. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective, some sort of balance is desired, is preferable, but I think that as a woman, my gifts lie, I don't know, it's a good question. I do think that I can speak for myself, that I'm very much an empath, and that I'm very connected with my emotions, and that is something that is part of why I do the work that I do. Because I can use it to help people, but I also sort of grew up really, like I said, with very much that sort of masculine mindset of ambition, achieving, and pushing, and so I to choose a percentage would be difficult.
But maybe it depends on the field, you know, because you're right. When we want to achieve something, with feminine only being, and some kind of action is necessary. So
no, I think you make a good point though, right? Depending on what field you work in, I'm a yoga teacher and life coach, so for me it really does benefit me to really tap into my more feminine side, especially because I work with women. If I were working in a different kind of environment, I may not get as far if I am really, really, really in my feminine.
Yeah. So maybe that's the balance, to find the way to manage it when we need it, depending on what we are doing. And
well, that's when it becomes tricky, right? Because if you're choosing how, you know, what you tap into based on your external environment, what if that's not really serving you? That's complicated.
But let's say, I mean, for a woman who is choose to be in like a very masculine environment, work environment, and are there some like tricks or tools that you can two of them you can like share for balance, to put more balance into the life for the feminine part then, because imagine you're in that, I don't know, masculine environment all day or like a few days a week, but I believe there are some tools or some practices which can help us to get that balance, to optimize the feminine power. And what do you think?
So a few things come to mind. I think one, in the context of every day in your daily life, let's say you are at work and having times throughout the day where you kind of check in with yourself. And it could be as simple, you know, just sort of reminding yourself what you need. And it could be as simple as asking yourself, is this decision I have to make, is this opportunity, is this nourishing me or is this depleting me? And possibly just checking in with how you feel in your body in that moment, taking some time to yourself, whether you're in the bathroom or somewhere quiet where you can just tune in and notice how you feel in your physical body, in your mind, and just take stock. so that you can respond appropriately. Because so much of the time, especially when we're working and doing what other people are telling us to do, we are ignoring what the messages that our body is telling us. We're ignoring our needs, even as simple as we need to use the bathroom, but we have a meeting right now, so we're going to ignore that and we're just going to continue.
So familiar.
Right? Which is, and it's not that this is a problem, but it's that we are constantly ignoring your body's needs. Or we've set time to have lunch, but we need to finish some things first. So we're going to ignore that we're hungry and we're going to wait until later. So we're constantly telling ourselves that these messages don't matter, or that our logic is more important than the messages from our body. And so a simple practice of just checking in with how you feel. I know it sounds really simple and maybe not that useful, but it really, really is if you're trying to reconnect.
And to pause. Yeah, sure.
But I think the other thing also is in creating space in your life outside of, if work is a place where you're really sort of having to put your masculine foot forward, shall we say, then having other space in your life where you can really tap into your creative, intuitive, using your body, movement, things and practices that help you access and reconnect with that side of yourself.
And also connecting with other women, right?
Yeah.
That's why I really love to see all your things you're doing, retreats and workshops for women also, because it's like a safe space, right? To be vulnerable, to feel really safe, to be yourself and your feminine, and excuse me, when we talk about that disconnection from other people, it's also from other women, and from that masculine, it's at least my experience. I've been in my masculine for a very long time, that competition, right? It will be very helpful at some point, but it's really masculine, and to compete with other women, it's not helpful at all. I mean, doesn't matter. I mean, which field we are talking about. Well, what do you think? Is it is there this connection? Is there some like awakening and like beginning to see other women like every other person, that doesn't matter from which gender, it's like a part of us when we think about the global and that we are one, but and particularly with other women and that energy that we can gain in a collective. Is it important? What do you think?
Is it important to connect with other women?
With other women and with ourselves too.
I mean, I think absolutely. I think it's an important part of our connection, is an important part of our well-being. And connection, well, I guess 2 questions, right? Connection with other women and other people is part of what gives us a sense of support and stability, and whether we're going through something challenging and difficult, we can find resources, we can find empathy and support from other people. And then connection with ourselves, I think, is important in giving us it's almost like our North Star, right? So it allows us to be able to know when things are right for us and wrong for us. And because I think a lot of people have had this experience where you're doing things because that's what's expected of you, or it's because it's what everyone else is doing, and you can feel that you aren't fully fulfilled and you aren't totally happy doing what you're doing. And to have a sense of connection with yourself allows you to know when things are right and when things are wrong, and when to reroute. And when you can really, really believe in that and really connect with that, that's when you can sort of confidently go after whatever it is that is going to fulfill you and is going to light you up.
That's a great point that you just said about, because I've been there too, and many of my clients also like doing everything what everyone else expects us to do. And at some point, I remember how it was like my journey. I've done that for so long, fulfilled fulfilling other expectations that I didn't really knew what I want. That's really, really lost. And where is the point that we can start then? Awareness, right? Or maybe
where we start building a connection with ourselves.
Yeah.
I think, where do we start?
it's because that's not familiar. We are like doing that for many years, and at some point we are not fulfilled. Something is missing, and we don't have any idea. And I remember back then my coach asked me, "Okay, what would you do?" Because you were obviously not happy with what you're doing right now. I was like, I don't know. And that's really really difficult, I guess, to start with. And
Absolutely.
what
I
you
think
said.
people, sometimes when you tell yourself also that I'm not connected with myself, you know, I don't know what I want, I don't know what I like, that kind of, you're telling yourself that you don't know. That's doing a disservice to you. And I think you know more than you think you do. And so I think some of the questions that are useful to ask are you reconnecting to the things that really light you up, the things, you know, what is it that brings you joy? What are the things that fulfill you? What are the things that give you almost like a lift of energy? And what are the things that deflate you? Or coming back to that question I asked before, is this nourishing me or is it depleting me? So what are the things in my life that nourish me? And what are the things that are depleting me? And that kind of helps give you a sense of direction and a sense of what your values are, what really is important to you, and not just the values that are aspirational that you want to claim as your values, but what actually are your values.
Okay,
You know?
I know, but tell more.
Well, no, I think sometimes if you ask someone like what are their values, they might say this, that, and the other thing, but really that's not how they act. And that's because they like the idea of having these things as their values, but they aren't really.
So being honest with ourselves is the first point.
Being honest with ourselves about what really matters to us. And when you're clear on that, then you start to get a lot of clarity around what in your life is working and is not working. And when you have I think, you know, we're talking about where do you start? Where do you start in building this connection?
Right.
I think once you have a greater sense of that, you know who you are a little bit more. Because that's right now, that's at the root of it is what do you care about? What matters to you?
When were that's for you? If I'm allowed to ask,
Sure.
how your journey brought you here today, and it's obvious that you really enjoy what are you doing, or your life, your work, and that's why it's so successful, because it's coming from that pure space and love. But was it always like this? And how was your journey?
So the quick answer is no, it was not always like this. I mean, look, I grew up, I didn't know anybody who practiced yoga or did coaching. Actually, I had one of my close friends in high school, her mom was a life coach, but I didn't really know anything about it.
Okay.
And I just kind of thought all of this stuff was, you know,
Like,
I thought it was all bullshit. Not that I knew, because I wasn't really around it, but I was just like, I was really skeptical.
oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it's really funny actually. So many things about where I am now are very funny, given who I was and how I was growing up. I think, you know, to the point I sort of touched on a little bit before is I grew up with a lot of pressure, to achieve, and I come from several generations of refugees, immigrants who went through challenges that I can only imagine and know from stories. But the messaging that I then received was, you have it really easy, and all you have to do is do well in school, and you're smart, so you should do well. And that all came from a place of, if you do well, you'll get into a good university, and you'll get a good job, and therefore you will be fine and you'll be safe. And that was really where it came from, a place of love.
Sure.
But I received that as so much pressure. And I think, and the reason I share this is, for me, the underlying current was a feeling like I wasn't enough. I wasn't achieving enough, you know, and I wasn't perfect, then it wasn't good enough. And that manifested for me in so many ways in, you know, just overthinking, anxiety, overdoing, under-resting, thinking if I did more then that would be better, but comparing myself to my peers. I had an eating disorder for a very long time, and all these things, like I'm like trying to control and trying to be perfect, right? Which is impossible. And so it's a very heavy weight, a heavy burden to bear. And it even showed up, I think, in the way that I struggled to assert myself, because I didn't really confidently believe in my opinions, or feeling like I needed to do more training and more studying before I could be good enough for opportunities that I wanted. So I had all of these sort of challenges, and I share these because I know a lot of women and a lot of people that I coach, right, relate with a lot of these things. And it's so this was sort of the backstory, but it was really yoga that introduced me to a new perspective and a new outlook on the world. And it showed me a way of viewing myself and other people that was more compassionate, that was less competitive, that was slower. And I found a teacher that I fell in love with yoga through her teaching, and I decided in 2017 to go study yoga in India, and I did my teacher training and did a lot of inner work during this time. But it took me a little while, and it was the start of COVID where I really was faced to confront the fact that I wasn't really enjoying the full-time job I was in, and I had this other passion in yoga and wellness and well-being. Yeah. And so that was a big turning point for me, where I decided, okay, I have this other thing that I love, and I finally gave myself permission to dream and to pursue this as a career path. Because it helped me so much, I knew that I wanted to be able to share this with other people. And I will tell you as well, I hated public speaking at the time, right? It was just because I knew that, because I didn't like getting in front of people. I didn't want people to, I was going to be judged. I look at me now, exactly. Another one of the crazy things, that I just knew that this was more important to share than my fear. And so it's been the most, anyway, it was at that time where I decided I wanted to add in coaching as well, because I love working with people. I'm very goal-oriented, and I thought they complement each other very well. That's sort of how I slowly got into this. First of all, it helped me, both of those tools helped me so much, and I wanted to be able to share them. And I realized that actually, I asked myself all these questions. What are my values? What does light me up? What do I love? And these practices were that for me, and I loved working with people, and I loved all of this stuff, and it just seemed like it all fit together so well. So that's how long answer, but that's kind of how I ended up here, and I absolutely love what I do.
So beautiful. I'm sure that many people, me too, can relate to all of the things you said, and something that resonates too is what you said, your values, your why was bigger than the fear at some point, and then you decided to act, because it's a long journey. We're confused in the beginning, then we don't know, or we think we don't know, or we don't want to know at some point, and then at some point we know, but that there are limiting beliefs, there's fear, it doesn't matter if from public speaking or something else, and I don't know, I've been there too, and I believe that it's a process, and it takes time, and it's really not easy to accept it and to just be with it, but it just takes some time sometimes, and but wow, it's a beautiful story. And now with your story you can inspire so many other people, and yoga. That's another thing that maybe we can also talk about. There are so many things. One episode won't be enough, but just about yoga and the connection with the body, because when we talk about trauma, or trauma is such a word, but like some experiences that we don't really enjoyed back then in the past, they're stored also in our, emotional pain can be stored in the body, and I believe that yoga and breathwork, so on, but especially yoga, is a great practice to reconnect, because for me personally was that eating disorder. It was for a short time, 1.5 years or so, but I really just didn't want to feel that pain, and so I just distracted myself with like food, at some point was sport, it's something else. But yoga, it's I believe it's one of the most powerful tools to reconnect with the body, right?
For me, I know that for me it is and has become a space that I just find it gives me an opportunity to notice how I feel and notice what I'm thinking. It really gives me, it's funny. Maybe as I've trained myself that way, but I think when you're practicing, and particularly when you have teachers that invite you to notice what's coming up for you, it's a moving meditation, right?
Yes.
And so it's just, I notice all of the things and the emotions, everything that comes up for me in the space of the yoga class, or the thoughts I have are sometimes repetitive or judging myself or really tapping into my body, and go through all of these different things, and it's a really beautiful space for me to witness myself and not judge.
Wow.
Right? I think that it's almost like a training space to do all of this so that you can take that out with you when you leave your yoga mat and you're out in the world. You have cultivated this skill of noticing when the judgment pops up, when this pops up, when this thought pops up, and you realize this is just a thought, this is just a thing, and maybe there's a message in it, but it is just, a mental event that does not need to take over my life.
Yeah, it's so beautiful, and I've been to your classes, and now I know where all that energy is coming from. It's really fascinating, and just being there and to follow that, everything what you do and you say. But for someone who's just like participating or watching, it's like you just do this and this, and for sure the energy is there, the flow, everything that's behind, right? What's happening, and that also collective mind and energy field at that moment is beautiful because of your guidance, I guess, too. Because wow.
Well, we're interacting, and so I may be guiding, but it's everybody in the space.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing it. Your own experience. I believe that I have many other people. Me, definitely, like where you're describing it, and it's so much also talking about it and about the coaching.
Sure. So, I primarily work with women as a coach, and I call myself an inner confidence coach, which really means that I support women to feel empowered to create and pursue a life that fulfills them, that's authentic to them, and to feel good, really, at the end of the day. Right? And so what I like to do is I combine sort of traditional coaching and mindset work with yoga, and not that we do a yoga class within a coaching session, but I like to bring in, for example, yoga philosophy, meditation to help them connect with the body, to cultivate a sense and awareness of their intuition. And so I work with clients one-to-one. I also run workshops and women's circles, of course retreats, and actually corporate workshops also. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
Only for women or the corporate there?
Corporate is open. And it's not exclusive. I think my one-to-one clients are always women at the moment. Yeah. But I think it's such a rewarding job for me, because you see how people really build their, not just their confidence, but their sense of identity and who they are, and that can manifest in so many different ways depending on the client. It's pursuing their own business, or creating boundaries at work, or in a new relationship. It can vary so much, but it's ultimately about getting people to feel strong and confident in pursuing and creating the life that they want.
Wow, so beautiful, really, really, really beautiful. But where we lost our confidence on the way?
That's always a question I like to go into with people when it's specifically a challenge that they're working with.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, some people might feel like they've never been confident.
Okay.
Which I challenge them on, because usually there's some place in your life where you do feel that.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes there's been an event in your life that you lost your confidence with. Right? I have a client who, not long ago, she was going through a lot of difficulty in her marriage, and she just was completely, and then she got sick, and she just, when she came to me, she felt like she had absolutely no confidence. And we started to look at, okay, well, and she was also not showing up as much in her work, or showing up confidently in her work, because she wasn't enjoying her job either, so she was sort of staying a little quieter and in the background. And so we were looking at, okay, well, like what are the things you do that support you to feel confident? Where have you felt confident? When did you feel confident at work before? And so she started to identify all of the different factors that sort of contributed and supported her in her confidence in the past. When it was having a mentor who was really uplifting. And she realized that, by staying quiet and holding back, she was actually pushing her confidence down.
Yeah.
So she started speaking out a little bit more and stepping into that and seeing her job as an opportunity for her own personal growth, as an opportunity to, help a company that she wasn't really enjoying. So she sort of shifted her mindset on that. We started showing up a little bit more confidently there. We started looking at things she really loves, certain exercise, all these things that help her to feel really strong and empowered and confident. So we started connecting the dots a little bit. So everyone is different, of course.
Sure.
But I think confidence, when you're trying to build it, I really like how Mel Robbins talks about confidence as really the willingness to take action. And so you're not going to feel confident all the time, first of all. And second of all, it's not going to just arrive and be transported into you. You build it by taking action. So one of the questions that I asked my client is and I asked her to ask herself is, what would a confident version of you do? And it's through those little actions that you start to add and build your identity as a person who does those things, and through that you build confidence.
Wow. Is it only like individual, or is also, especially for women, generational, from that we know from our mother, grandmother, and so on? But it's more like an issue for women than for men. That confidence, right? Was like we are not supposed to stand out or to be confident because it's we're not supposed to, or not allowed, or something.
Well, it's a more typically masculine, right, energy trait. I think everyone can struggle with it, of course, but I do think that, especially because of the pressure, how do I say this? I think this is a really interesting question where my mind is going, because I haven't thought about this so much before. But I wonder if the pressure that we face as women to achieve and to be a certain way, to look a certain way, all of this stuff, and maybe because we are more emotional, we take that on board a little bit more. And so when you feel like you aren't enough, you don't feel confident. Right? Or if you appear confident, it's something that you're sort of putting on because you don't really believe it yourself. Yeah. And I know that men struggle with confidence as well, but at least in the way that they show up, and from my experience and what I see, it seems to manifest more overtly in women.
Yeah, I believe too, and I forgot to ask something about feminine and masculine because it's the flow. So it was somewhere else. But what do you think? We believe that there's some kind of, let's say, polarity, and then the masculine or the feminine attract the masculine, and so on, in a romantic relationship. Like for man and woman, for example.
Yeah.
Or even in the same gender, there is, I guess, some dominant expression of the masculine and the feminine into individuals. And when we are in our masculine as a woman, do we attract someone, or let's say person, in the feminine then, to get that balance as a couple?
Well, I don't know. I think it depends on the person, right? Because you may feel like you're more balanced out, but you may still be looking for someone who is traditionally masculine, right? Or you want someone, sometimes we want someone who's just like us or has similar traits to us, and we don't necessarily see the value in the opposite.
Yeah.
Right. I listened to something on a podcast recently where they were talking about that actually people who are kind of opposites in many ways, and this is just generalizing, but they sort of really can complement each other a lot better. But a lot of us go wrong in thinking that we want someone who's just like us. So I don't know if I have.
I'm still struggling with this too, because back then when I went to my coaching education stuff, and one of the our teachers was really extreme in that, like, you're in that masculine, so you tell yourself that you want that man. I mean, let's speak like for myself now. Sure. And then you have that manifestation of your vision that your mind is telling you.
Right.
But in reality, you're so in that masculine that no really masculine man is attracted to that, because there is competition. Because even I was married for 11 years in a relationship, and I think that's what was one of the points where the marriage went like to some end, because I went so in that masculine and on that competition that it's at some point it's not attractive. You know what I mean? So and then back then to that teacher, she was like, I mean, you have to be in that feminine to really attract that masculine partner, because these polarity, they're like attracting to balance the. I speak about in the relationship, not at work or something, right? Because you can be, I believe, in that masculine power at work because it's beneficial, to be honest. Yeah. To do that, the action, to do the steps and so. Yeah. But then in the private life and in the romantic relationships, to soften and what is your experience with? Is it difficult for women to switch then? When they're like achieving, and then to soften in the private.
I think it's something that I've seen.
Yeah.
And again, I can't generalize, but I think that for sure we've been taught that we should do it all, and we need to.
That's the thing. We should at all. Yeah.
We should do it all, and we need to compete with everyone else, and we need to push, and we do need to tone down our feminine in order to be as successful as a man. Yeah. I think. And so for sure, when you're so focused on that, then it can be hard to switch if you aren't aware and if you aren't doing things to connect and support and nourish your feminine side.
Yes. Wow, yes, that's exactly what it is about. It's so interesting, the dynamic, right? And it's not so easy. Yeah. And about emotions, that's the other thing that you said something in the beginning of our talk, that like we don't want to be too much, and something like too emotional, too much. How do we, like, how can I, just a second, is there a way to get back that emotional part, that we allow ourselves to be more emotional, be vulnerable again, because we don't have to do it all, and we're not supposed to be perfect anyway. And what do you recommend? How can we allow ourselves to also be emotional and not so, especially in that personal development area, like where achieving and motivation and let's do this and action. But at some point, is I believe it's also necessary to pause and to look and to express also our feelings, emotions. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I speak to clients about this all the time. That, and you touched on this before as well, this idea that our emotions can get trapped in our body and they manifest in whether it's physical pain or we usually don't make the connection because we think that they're totally separate.
But you believe that's possible, right? That emotional
Absolutely.
pain could be like some disease, even like chronic or other disorder.
Absolutely, and I think that's been a proven thing, but it's not something that I definitely was not taught growing up, so I didn't know. And so I think that the physical ailment is completely separate from the emotional. So I think that your emotions are always sending you messages, right? They are messages. They're telling you something they're telling you about something that you need. And so if it's a more positive emotion, right, it's telling you that you're feeling, you are fulfilling a need. And if it's a more, negative or unwanted emotion, then something isn't quite right, or we aren't totally aligned with that experience, right? So it's not a bad thing to experience it, because if we didn't have those emotions, then we would be in trouble. We wouldn't know what's, good and bad for us.
Yeah, I love that.
So the emotion is good, but we need to be able to take the information from it and use it and also process it. Because like we touched on before, if we're not processing it, if we're ignoring it or we're pushing past, then it gets trapped. And so in learning to feel our emotions, we need to identify, realize and recognize first that it's okay, that there's a message there. That's all that really is. And that if we feel it and we allow ourselves to really feel it, then we can process it and let it go and move beyond. So I guess kind of making it all a little bit less scary and realizing that it really is okay. And you can start really small, because I know this can be an overwhelming task. So starting really small with when a little trigger comes up, even in your daily life, and just noticing what it is, taking a moment to feel the emotion in your body. Because when you actually allow yourself to feel your emotions, they only last about, I think it's like
90 seconds.
90 seconds, right? A really short period of time. But it's in the thoughts that sort of re-trigger the emotion for us. If we can let ourselves actually sort of process and feel, then we can move past. Right? There's no time, 90 seconds is ideal, but possible, but we are complicated creatures.
Sure.
But in order to move past, I think, and actually not let those emotions continue to control you, you gotta let yourself feel them.
I love this, really love this. And it's even better to resolve them like immediately, right? Not to store them and to, how they say it in yoga, samskara or something like this. Those trapped emotions or feelings, whatever we're like carrying. And I already read something about it, like 90 seconds, and I was like, it actually seems easy, right? 90 seconds, but it's so difficult to just.
And to remember to let yourself do that and fully experience it.
Yeah, and I just have to get back to feminine and masculine.
Yeah.
I believe that's even more challenging for men to be emotional, or not to be emotional, but to express and to experience emotions, right?
Well, it all comes back to conditioning.
That's the
right.
point, yeah.
Unfortunately, but it's interesting you say this, because I was talking to someone recently about this difference in the way women tend to, talk about their emotions and really more comfortable crying, more comfortable releasing, right? And whereas men typically are not as comfortable doing that. That's not their default. And so I see this sometimes with some friends and people who've gone through breakups where women sort of really they process things more quickly than men, who tend to sort of, switch off, or the response is, and again, we're generalizing here, but the response is often very different. And what I've seen in a lot of people is that the women sort of are processing and moving past it a little more quickly than the men. And I can just see the difference in how they've responded. And so that's kind of a theory that I have, that in allowing yourself to really process and work through the emotions, you're able to move beyond more quickly than if you try to ignore, push past, or push down the emotion itself.
Yeah, but how long can we do this, right?
Well, push things down.
Yeah.
Well, some people do it their whole lives, but
Yeah.
no, it's really and I think it's sad and it's unfortunate, because it's not fair that men have, for the most part, been taught that they shouldn't express those emotions, and they get, that obviously affects them. And I've seen it in my own family, and I was telling you before that my grandmother passed last week, and just seeing the way that the men in the family try to, hold it together for everybody else, right? And that as a woman and as someone who's really in this work, I don't want any of them to feel like they need to put on a face to support everyone else. I want them to be able to process and go through their own emotions. But just watching that made me really reflect on this particular issue, because they've been told, and that's been the conditioning, that you should not cry, you should not express an emotion, and you need to step up and be that support for everyone else.
Yeah, wow. Even it, I'm so sorry, that's, but it's another lesson, right? That's story.
Many lessons have come out of it.
Yeah. Wow, I mean, we talked about so many things, and maybe chaotic, but it's fine. It's how the feminine energy works.
Exactly. It's a conversation. That's natural.
Thank you so much. I hope that there will be many other. And before we finish, can you tell us again where we can find you online? The episode will be launched a little bit, unfortunately, late, so for your retreat, but you're doing them so often, and
There will be more.
There'll be more. So retreats, your homepage, Instagram.
Yes. So you can find me on Instagram at Simone Topel, on my website simonetopel.com, and I post everything on there about all of my offerings, and one-to-one coaching, group workshops in person, retreats as well, and so all of that information can be found there.
Yoga classes, of course.
Yoga classes too, so all of the above. And I also have a free resource for women who are interested in building their confidence. It's sort of a guide, a really nice starting point, so it could be useful for any listeners who are interested in that, so I can share the link with them. Yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time and energy, for sharing your gifts, and to be here now. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.